A confirmation hearing is supposed to be a final, crucial job interview for some of the most powerful positions in the country. But what happens when the candidates can't answer the most basic questions? This isn't just about one person's bad day. It's a window into the intersection of competence, political pressure, and the immense responsibility of public office. The real question is, are these hearings designed to find the best person for the job, or are they simply a stage for political drama? Let's look at the key exchange that reveals everything.
Thank you, my friend. Congratulations to all of you. I hope to be able to ask each of you some questions, but I do want to stay within my time limit. Let's start with Ms. Clark. You've been nominated by President Biden, served on the federal district court, which means, of course, that the Court of Appeal is going to review all of your decisions. What is the appellate standard of review for question of fact?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I have not worked on an appeal in my 14 years of experience. I believe that it is reviewed based on abuse of discretion would be this.
No, it's clear error.
Clear error.
As the federal district court judge, you're going to have a lot of discretion on determining facts. How about if somebody appeals one of your decision and they say you made a mistake on the law? What's the appellate standard of review?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Again,
You're welcome.
I mentioned, I have not worked on appeals. If a question like that came before me, I would thoroughly research the law. I understand that there's de novo review, abuse of discretion, and clear error are the different standards.
Okay, but you don't know today the answer.
Thank you for the question, Senator. It would be
welcome.
something that I would need to research further.
Okay. How about a mixed question of fact and law? What's the standard of review on that?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Again, my understanding are that the different levels of review are de novo, abuse of discretion, and clear error.
Well, but that's a question of law and fact is different.
Thank you for the question, Senator.
You're welcome.
Again, in my 14 years of experience, that is not an issue that has confronted me.
Okay. All right. Well, you've been nominated for the Southern District, I think. Is that right?
That is correct.
So you'll see a lot of securities cases?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me what SEC Rule 10b-5 is.
That's a rule that deals with fraud. I have not litigated a securities matter. If I were to confront one, I would thoroughly research Second Circuit and Supreme Court precedent, and I would apply the law to the facts.
Ms. Clark, you've been nominated to the Southern District of New York. It's where most of our securities cases are litigated. And SEC Rule 10b-5 is about as basic as you can get. You want to take another crack at that and tell me what Rule 10b-5 does?
Thank you again for the question, Senator. I regularly confront new issues of law in my practice, and when I do, I thoroughly research the issue.
I know you're going to thoroughly research it, but are you telling me today you don't know what Rule 10b-5 is?
I only have that basic understanding.
Okay. All right. Let me ask Ms. Franklin and Ms. Williams a question. Your jurisdiction, let me be sure I get the title correct. Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board. I got that right? Your jurisdiction is pretty broad, isn't it?
So the jurisdiction is broad in some ways in that the board has oversight over counterintelligence programs across the intelligence community with regard to privacy and civil liberties, but it's focused on counterintelligence or it's focused on counterterrorism, not all privacy and civil liberties issues.
Right, okay. I think this is a very important board. But I'm sitting here thinking, we spent 3-4 years with some, not all, I'm going to emphasize that, but some, not all members of our FBI and our Department of Justice selling the Steele Dossier. Does that embarrass you?
So Senator, I think, there have been 3 Inspector General reports with regards to some of the things that went on, and I think that the recommendations in them are a good recommendation.
Well, let me ask you this, Ms. Wayne. Do you think the Steele Dossier is true?
Well, Senator, I have no basis to believe it's true or either way.
You don't have an opinion?
I mean, I don't have any factual basis to know whether or not I do. From what I've read, it sounds like there's some concerns with the way it was procured.
So I don't understand. Yeah. Do you believe it's true or not true?
So I haven't read the Steele Dossier, but from the news reports, it sounds like there may be falsehoods in it. But again, I don't have personal knowledge of it.
Ms. Franklin, do you have an opinion on whether it's true or not true?
I also have not had access to read the dossier, but I can say that I share your concern.
Yeah, but if it's true, I want to understand where you're coming from. Do you believe it's true or not true?
I believe that the Inspector General of the Justice Department found significant problems in 3 reports, including 17 significant errors or omissions in the FISA applications regarding Carter Page.
So you believe it's not true?
I believe that the Inspector General found these errors and omissions, which are highly concerning.
Do you agree with the Inspector General?
I find the Inspector General's report very convincing, yes.
Okay. So you don't believe the Steele Dossier is true? Why is it so hard for you? Oh, tell me what you think here. That's pretty basic.
I would turn to the errors and omissions that the Inspector General did point to, which were significant, and I know that Congress has attempted to take steps to address those.
Well, here's what I'm getting at. I mean, I can tell y'all don't want to answer, and I really regret that. I mean, this to me it's not political. It was these allegations that turned out not to be true. It doesn't matter who they were about, but some members of our federal government put the full force and weight of the power of the office behind this dossier. And it didn't matter who they were. And I can't believe you can't agree with me that it's not true. I mean, there have been 3 Inspectors General reports. Where was your agency? Did anybody at your agency stand up and say, wait a minute, before we make all these allegations on the basis of the Steele Dossier, shouldn't we check whether they're true? I mean, FBI Director Comey sold this thing for 5 years. James Clapper was prepared to make a public statement that we're not sure if the dossier is accurate, and Director Comey called him and said, no, don't say that. Where were you guys at the board? You're supposed to protect civil liberties. You're supposed to protect privacy. Does it matter whose privacy and civil liberties are being infringed? Either one.
So, Senator, I wasn't at the board. I haven't been at the board yet, but I agree with you that that is exactly the role of the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, right?
Thank you.
To ensure that the privacy and civil liberties of Americans are taken into account, and to make sure that our intelligence agencies are being completely forthright and truthful with the decision.
Thank you for that. Well, you were there, Ms. Franklin, right? You weren't there?
No, Senator.
Okay, well, when you both get there, I wish you would talk to your colleagues over there. They ought to hide their heads on a bag. They're in charge of protecting American civil liberties and privacy, and it doesn't matter who you are. And they sat there sucking on their teeth like a bump on a log and never said a word. I'm done. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, and I like your haircut.
Haven't had one in a while. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. And I'd just like to say to those who are new to this environment that the mini bar exam that Senator Kennedy gives to many of these witnesses reminds me of my anxiety in law school, where I sat in the last row and slumped down to the point where I have curvature of the spine in the hopes that I wouldn't be called on to answer what 15B is or anything like that. But nevertheless, always entertaining and always well presented. The second objection made by the senator relates to your lack of candor. On this side of the table, we're a different branch of government than what you're aspiring to, by and large. And we have opinions on everything and express them willingly, particularly if it's televised, and very seldom hold back. We know that on the judicial side, the opposite is true. You don't want to put yourself on the record in a situation that may disqualify you from a case, and the frustration Senator Kennedy feels with some of your lack of candor, we felt on the Democratic side with the other administration. It is by nature a reflection on the branches of government being a little different in philosophical approach, to say the least. So before I adjourn today, I want to thank you for cooperation and patience, especially to Caroline and Jamie. Are they still back there? Good. Good job, kids. Questions for the record will be due to the nominees by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, January 19th, and the record remains open until that time to submit letters and similar materials. And with that, this hearing stands adjourned.
This exchange is a masterclass in political strategy and reveals deep-seated tensions in our confirmation process. Let's break down what's really happening. Senator Kennedy's strategy with Ms. Clark, the judicial nominee, is not random. He starts with questions about the appellate standard of review. To a layperson, this sounds like complex legal jargon, but for any practicing litigator, especially one nominated to be a federal judge, it's the absolute basics. Think of it as asking a surgeon to name the major bones in the human body. When a higher court reviews a lower court's decision, it uses different standards. For questions of fact, the standard is clear error, meaning the appeals court must be firmly convinced the trial judge made a mistake. For questions of law, the standard is de novo, meaning the appeals court looks at the issue fresh, with no deference to the lower court judge. Ms. Clark's inability to define these fundamental concepts is the first major red flag. The questioning then pivots to SEC Rule 10b-5. This is a brilliant strategic move. Ms. Clark has been nominated for the Southern District of New York, which is ground zero for the nation's most important financial and securities litigation cases. Rule 10b-5 is the cornerstone of anti-fraud provisions in securities law. Asking about it is like asking a prospective head of the FAA if they know what a runway island. Her response, that she has a basic understanding but would have to research it, highlights a critical gap in experience for the very court she hopes to join. The second part of the hearing, with the nominees for the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, shifts from competence to ideology. The senator uses the Steele Dossier as a litmus test. The dossier was a collection of raw, unverified intelligence reports that contained explosive allegations. Its use by the FBI became a major political firestorm. The senator's goal here is to see if the nominees are willing to criticize a politically charged issue, even when it was used by members of their own side's government. Their hesitation and evasive answers are telling. They are trying to avoid a direct answer that could be used against them. But in doing so, they fail to demonstrate the fierce independence their oversight role requires. The core themes being exposed are clear. First, the expectation of fundamental competence. And second, the challenge of maintaining nonpartisan principles in a hyper-political world. This hearing doesn't exist in a vacuum. It reflects a much larger trend in American politics, where judicial and executive confirmations have become brutal, televised spectacles. The process is now less about vetting qualifications and more about scoring political points. Nominees, in turn, are coached to be as bland and non-committal as possible. creating a frustrating loop where senators ask pointed questions and nominees give vague, unsatisfying answers. Think of it like a high-stakes corporate merger negotiation being conducted live on television. Both sides are speaking in code, not to inform the public, but to signal to their allies and avoid giving their opponents any ammunition. The result is that the public is often left with more questions than answers about who these individuals really are and what they truly believe. The purpose of an oversight board, for example, is to be an independent watchdog that protects citizens from government overreach. But if its members are unwilling to take a clear stand on past government actions, it raises serious questions about their ability to perform that duty effectively in the future. So, what are the key takeaways from all of this? First, fundamental knowledge is not an optional extra. It's the baseline requirement for positions of immense public trust. Second, in today's political climate, nominees often walk a tightrope, balancing the need to appear competent with the political pressure to say nothing controversial, which can make them seem evasive. Finally, these confirmation hearings often reveal as much about the priorities and political strategies of the senators asking the questions as they do about the qualifications of the person being questioned. Ultimately, this leaves us with a critical question about the health of our governing institutions. Does this grueling, often theatrical process actually produce better public servants, or does it merely reward those who are best at navigating a political minefield? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this analysis helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video.